California has always been a hotbed for professional sports, as all the major American leagues have multiple teams in the state. In terms of basketball, the NBA first tapped into this market in 1961 when the Minneapolis Lakers relocated to Los Angeles, as they would become one of the most popular franchises in pro sports history. The Philadelphia Warriors relocated to San Francisco in 1962. They would make it to 2 NBA finals before being renamed to the Golden State Warriors in 1971, as they finally hit their stride about a decade ago and created a dynasty. In 1986, the Kansas City Kings were relocated to Sacramento, and while they haven't had the success of the other 2 franchises, the overwhelming fan support has kept this team afloat, even amidst some relocation rumors about a decade ago. However, one city that has failed multiple times in the lane of pro basketball is San Diego. There's been 3 tries to host a team in the city, and they've all failed. The Conquistadors/Sales of the ABA and the Rockets and Clippers of the NBA were noble attempts to try to capitalize on the lucrative California market, but they all failed due to multiple reasons. In today's episodes, we'll look at the reasons why the Chargers were the only relevant sports franchise from San Diego. Welcome to PZ Hoops, and let's get down to it. Let's start with the San Diego Rockets in 1967, as they were started by Robert Breitbart, a former head coach of the football team at San Diego State University, as he paid a fee of almost $2 million. The NBA wanted more Western teams and saw San Diego as a good place due to its rising population and economic growth.
What was the determining factor in selecting the one that we're going to learn about in just a moment?
Well, we looked to see San Diego, the industry in San Diego, and we hit on a name that we think is strictly sensational.
Well, let's not keep the suspense suspenseful any longer, Bob. Let's see this.
Well, here it is, Lyle. The San Diego Rockets.
The name Rockets was chosen from a local contest, taken from San Diego's theme of a city in motion. Breitbart also owned a hockey team, the San Diego Gulls of the Western Hockey League. The Rockets would play their home games at the San Diego International Sports Center, a building that Robert also owned. Jack McMahon was brought in to be the coach and the general manager. The Rockets would join the league at the same time as the Seattle Supersonics, as both teams selected players from the 1967 expansion and college draft. Pat Riley, a 6'4" shooting guard from Kentucky, was chosen by San Diego with the 7th pick of the college draft. The initial roster was a collection of cast-offs and young guys, as he had players like Don Kogis, a 28-year-old forward who was a career journeyman, John Block, a second-year center who was buried on the Lakers bench last season, and Jumpin' Joe Green, a former All-Star who was in the latter end of his career. As is the case with most expansion teams, they were pretty bad. They had the worst offense and the worst defense in the league. They were last in points and field goal percentage, but on the bright side, Don Kogis made his first career All-Star game. The Rockets started 4-16 in their first 20 games, and they finished the season on a 14-game losing streak, finishing 15-67, a then NBA record for losses in the season. John Block and Don Kogis both averaged 20-10 this season. In 1968, the Rockets won a coin flip with the Baltimore Bullets for the first pick in the draft, as they selected Elvin Hayes from Houston. Along with Hayes, the Rockets also selected Stu Lance and Rick Adelman. Hayes quickly became the best player on the team as he dropped 25 points and 12 rebounds in his debut, followed by 34 points and 24 rebounds the next game. Hayes would lead the league in scoring as a rookie, averaging 28.5 points along with 17 rebounds, becoming an All-Star, but finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting to his future teammate Wes Unseld. Don Kogis had another All-Star season, while Block's production dipped a little bit. The Rockets were still a bad defensive team though, but they now had the 3rd best offense with the fastest pace, finishing 37-45, securing the franchise's first playoff appearance, facing the Hawks. Atlanta was an extremely deep team with a starting lineup of Lou Hudson, Bill Bridges, Caldwell Jones, Walt Hazzard, and Zemo Beatty. But the Rockets were holding their own as the series was tied after 4 games. San Diego would lose in Game 5 despite 27-9 from Hayes, as the Hawks shot 48 free throws. In Game 6, the Rockets were up 7 when the 4th quarter started, but they would end up losing by 2, even though they shot 57% as a team. The Hawks shot 45 free throws in that game. In 1969, the Rockets were pretty much reliant on Elvin Hayes to carry them. Hayes would take the most shot attempts and play the most minutes this season, averaging 27 points and the league-leading 17 rebounds, as the second best scorer on the team was Don Kogis with 15 points a game. Hayes could only do so much though, as the Rockets were still the worst defensive team in the league and their offense had regressed. Jack McMahon was fired after a 9-17 start, as he was replaced by Alex Hannum, but San Diego would finish 27-55, missing the playoffs. In 1970, the league welcomed 3 new teams: the Portland Trail Blazers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Buffalo Braves. San Diego would draft future Hall of Famers Calvin Murphy and Rudy Tomjanovich, as Hayes finally had some help. He would deliver his usual production this year, but Stu Lance had the best season of his career, dropping 21 points a game, while Murphy was third on the team with 16 points. The Rockets' defense had improved, but their offense regressed even more. Nonetheless, they finished 40-42, missing the playoffs by 1 game. Despite the team's moderate success on the court, Breitbart was losing a lot of money thanks to an ongoing tax assessment regarding the San Diego sports arena. He still hadn't paid the NBA the full expansion fee, plus he owed money on construction costs. Also during this time, the American sports economy was plummeting as mostly all ABA and NBA teams were operating in the red. On January 26, 1970, Robert tearfully addressed the fans about his financial struggles, as several fans wrote petitions and lobbied local officials over the next year and a half, but Robert was running out of time. He didn't want to relocate, and he fought against all proposals. But on June 23, 1971, the NBA quickly approved his sale of the Rockets to a Houston-based investment group, as they believed the team would fold. The news of the sale broke before coaches, players, and team employees could be notified, catching everyone by surprise. The Houston Rockets would start play the next season, becoming the first NBA team in Texas. The San Diego Conquistadors, or the Qs, were founded by Leonard Bloom in 1972 as the ABA's first and only expansion team. The Qs were expected to play at the San Diego Sports Arena, but Leonard had butted heads with Peter Graham, the operator and leaseholder of the arena. Graham would lock the team out of the facility for 2 years, as he was reportedly upset about Leonard being awarded the franchise instead of him. By the time the conflict was resolved in 1974, the team was pretty much doomed, as they were forced to share the gym with San Diego State at an arena that only seated 3,200 people. The Qs had a decent collection of players in 1972, like Chuck Williams, Stu Johnson, and Jerry Chambers. They were coached by Celtics legend K.C. Jones, but the Qs had the second worst offense and fourth worst defense, as Williams and Johnson were all-stars, but the team finished 30-54. But since there weren't that many teams in the league, they made the playoffs, facing off against the Utah Stars, with their core of Ron Boone, Willie Wise, and Zelmo Beatty. The Qs were easily swept as they shot 37% as a team for the series, and 3 out of the 4 games were decided by double digits. In 1973, the Qs had managed to lure Wilt Chamberlain away from the Lakers as a player coach for $600,000. However, the Lakers sued, as Wilt still had an option year left on his contract, but he felt that he was able to renegotiate his contract after they won the championship in 1972. On the opening day of the ABA season, a judge ruled that Wilt could coach the Qs, but he couldn't play. Since Wilt would be relegated to the sidelines, he was basically just an attraction for the team. But Wilt really wasn't interested in coaching, as he left most of those duties to his assistant Stan Albeck, who would later say that Wilt was bored with the day-to-day work of being a coach, as he didn't have the patience for it. Wilt was more preoccupied with promoting his new autobiography, even skipping a game to sign autographs. The Qs had signed Caldwell Jones to be a defensive force in the middle, along with Bo Lamar, an undersized scoring guard from Louisiana. The Qs got 20 points a game from both Lamar and Johnson, while Jones averaged 15 points and 14 rebounds, while leading the league with 4 blocks a game, finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting behind Sven Nader. San Diego would have the best offense, but the worst defense, finishing 37-47, as they were tied with the Denver Rockets. They would win the tiebreaker game by 20, as Lamar, Johnson, and Jones would combine for 84 points. With this win, they clinched the last playoff spot in the Western Division, facing off against the Utah Stars again. This series was more competitive this time, as both teams were tied after 4 games, but the Qs would lose the next 2 by double digits. Coach Wilt would leave the team and retire from basketball after the season, as he was disappointed with the lackluster attendance at the games, as San Diego only averaged about 1,800 fans a game. The Qs were on their last leg in 1975, as without Chamberlain there as a ticket seller, the team was largely ignored by the fans. San Diego pretty much kept the same team, as Caldwell Jones averaged another double-double while leading the league in blocks again. Jones and Johnson were all-stars, while Travis Grant and Bo Lamar both averaged 20 points. San Diego had a terrible defense and an average offense. They went through 2 coaches this year, as they finished 31-53, missing the playoffs. In the summer of 1975, Leonard sold the team to Frank Goldberg, who was a former co-owner of the Denver Nuggets. Frank would rename the team to the Sails, pretty much changing the entire image of the team. But the Sails only attracted 3,000 fans in their home opener, and attendance numbers kept falling during the next 10 games. Frank would later learn that San Diego wouldn't be included in the NBA merger, reportedly because Lakers owner Jack Cook didn't want another team to share their Southern Carolina fan base. After learning this news, Frank folded the team on November 12, 1975. The San Diego Clippers were the result of the relocation of the Buffalo Braves in 1978, who were basically forced out of their home arena by a college team. The Clippers' name was chosen in reference to the sailing ships that passed through the San Diego Bay. Gene Shue was the first coach for the team, as some holdovers from the Braves remained like Sven Nader, Randy Smith, and Scott Lloyd. They also had talented forwards in Kermit Washington and Sidney Wicks, while also trading a first-round pick to the Sixers for World B. Free. That first-round pick would later become Charles Barkley. Their first season started out pretty bad, as they were 6-12 in their first 18 games. World B. Free would finally break out though, becoming a cultural icon and finishing second behind George Gervin in scoring at just under 29 points a game. The Clippers would improve a lot over the course of the season, finishing 43-39, missing the playoffs by 2 games. The next season, the Clippers added San Diego native Bill Walton, only a few years removed from his MVP season leading the Trailblazers to a title. But Walton's feet were failing him as he missed 68 games. World B. Free averaged 30 points a game this season, second in the league again. He would make his first and only All-Star game this season, but the injury slowed this team down as they finished 35-47, missing the playoffs. World B. Free was traded to the Warriors in the offseason for Phil Smith. The Clippers replaced Gene Shue with Paul Silas in 1980, but Bill Walton would be out for the entire season again with foot issues. The Clippers got solid production from Freeman Williams, Sven Nader, and rookie Michael Brooks, but they really didn't have the talent to compete, finishing 36-46, missing the playoffs. The 1981-82 season would mark the beginning of the end for the Clippers in San Diego, as the team was sold to Donald Sterling, who was hell-bent on moving the franchise to Los Angeles, as he would make every effort to devalue the franchise. The Clippers were not competitive at all this season, finishing 17-65, although they did draft Tom Chambers from the University of Utah. During the season, Sterling was fined $10,000 for publicly stating that the team would lose games to get a high draft pick to get Ralph Sampson. On another occasion, he would violate the collective bargaining agreement by flying his players to road games in the coach seats on commercial airliners. Several hotels refused to allow the Clippers to stay there due to multiple incidents of unpaid accommodations. A Newark bus company had even stranded the team at the airport as Sterling failed to pay for previous trips, almost causing them to miss a game they had against the Nets. Sterling tried to relocate the Clippers to LA again in 1982, but he was denied. Donald filed an unsuccessful lawsuit against the league, and the league countered with their own lawsuit. By the summer, a committee of NBA owners had recommended that Sterling's ownership should be terminated, since he was late in paying the creditors and the players. Sterling finally agreed to sell the team in October, as he was still able to remain the owner until the league found a San Diego buyer. Then all of a sudden, League Vice President David Stern called the Clippers a first-class franchise, and the decision to oust Sterling as an owner was reversed. But this affected the Clippers on the court as they struggled, finishing 25-57, even with the Rookie of the Year Terry Cummings. The Clippers were still bad in 1983, finishing 30-52, but the biggest headline would be about Sterling again. Donald had relocated the team behind the league's back, leading to a $25 million fine, basically demanding that the team remain in San Diego. Sterling filed another lawsuit against the league, this time for $100 million, and he won, earning the right to finally move the team to Los Angeles in 1984. 3 years later, Sterling and the league both dropped their lawsuits against each other, therefore keeping the Clippers in LA, as Donald's fine was reduced to $6 million. In 2023, it was announced that the Clippers would be moving their G League team from Ontario to San Diego, bringing back the San Diego Clippers name after 40 years. San Diego seemed like a good place to start a professional basketball team, but due to lack of real fan interest and owner mismanagement, all 3 of these teams fell relatively quickly. Even the Chargers, who had a diehard fan base for decades, fell victim to the draw of the City of Angels. So who knows if there'll ever be another team in San Diego. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate all the support on the channel. You guys are really subscribing like crazy. I really appreciate y'all. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. Have a great day. I'm out. Peace.